let's move on to our deep dive on retirement income. And sort of maybe you can give some background as to what retirement income is and why we're even talking about it now.
Sure. So, as I reflect on a lot of the things that we talk about from a plan design perspective, a lot of the trends that have shifted and evolved and changed, a lot of the focus of conversations for sponsors, whether it's plan design, whether it's menu construction, I mean, arguably even the fee element, it's about accumulation. It's about building savings. And, we're, for better or for worse, now primarily an account balance system. So, we're helping employees build these nest eggs, hopefully big nest eggs. And then what? And there just hasn't been a lot of progress on decumulation. How do we help people spend in retirement? How do we help people use this money? And there's a lot of interest in decumulation. There's a lot of different constituencies here. Congress is definitely interested in how do we get people income. We've talked about that random proposal to require, guaranteed income in plans. Probably don't have to tell anyone. Investment managers, insurance companies are
Right.
really interested in how do I tap into this money that's in these accounts. Advisors are interested in that. Um, perhaps one of the more near-term interesting elements, a lot of folks may have seen, there was a headline in the Wall Street Journal in early October, kind of promoting that BlackRock, was adding annuities to their target date funds. And, like a lot of media, I think that some of the details were not fleshed out, really made it sound like they had added annuities broadly to target date funds in a way that impacted a lot of people. Made it sound like the solution was a lot more developed and launched and mainstream than the reality of it. But I think goes to show, we got a lot of questions on it. People are interested in it. People recognize that this is a challenge that we're going to face.
So let's start the discussion on sort of what decumulation looks like and what barriers might exist.
Yeah, so the first thing I think is really important to acknowledge about decumulation is, unlike accumulation that pretty much looks the same for everybody, regardless of where I am in my career, regardless of my pay level, I got to put money into the plan and I got to invest it. And that just doesn't look all that different from one person to the next. And that's why auto enrollment works great. That's why target date funds work great. Decumulation though can look really different for different people, and there's no right or wrong answers here. It's just very personal. And so we outlined here a couple strategies. How when a distribution is coming out of a plan, how could that be used? Purchasing an annuity to get guaranteed income is certainly an option. I don't think we have evidence that that is a widely used option, but if someone's taking a full distribution from their plan, they could be doing that. They could be consolidating with other accounts. We certainly need to acknowledge most people do not have all of their savings in a single location. They may have multiple 401k plans, they may have a 401k and an IRA, but they don't necessarily have one big pool of money with everything in one place. They may be using a distribution to fund a one-time expenditure. Sometimes we think about the need for consistent regular income like a paycheck, and that's true, but I like to go on vacation sometimes. That's a higher one-time expenditure. People face new home purchases, they face medical bills. And so we may see a distribution of someone's account. We may see $25,000 $50,000 come out in 1 year to fund some kind of one-time purchase.
Mhm.
um,
And in terms of decumulation, when does it start for people typically?
mhm. Well, anytime after age 59 and a half is a good rule of thumb as far as when it can start. Not a lot of ability to use in plan assets before that. But really, there's a lot of evidence that shows that it even doesn't start then. The money in maybe is coming out of the plan in a full distribution, but it's being consolidated into an IRA where it's sitting until people have to take required minimum distributions. There's a fair amount of research that shows people really queue to those legal requirements.
Yeah. And I don't know if we have any data handy, but how many people actually keep their money in the plan versus moving it to an
Mhm.
IRA?
Yeah, the data would generally indicate about 80% of people will take a distribution within 5 years of leaving the company. So the vast majority are taking it out, and they're taking it out fairly quickly in that 5-year time period. It's a very much minority of participants that are choosing to use, installment payment type features to get regular income from a plan.
Okay. So let's move on to some of the barriers to having in the plan decumulation
Mhm.
options.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important to think about the barriers in two buckets. There's barriers for participants, there's barriers for plan sponsors. Let's talk first about, if I'm a participant in a 401k plan, first is plan design. A lot of plans don't offer a lot of options, or, they may offer installments, but maybe there's not a lot of flexibility to those options. If the installment says, hey, you can only get one payment per year, that most people, that's really not ideal. They might want their monthly paycheck. We talked about savings structure, the idea of having savings in multiple locations. How do I figure out if I've got, two different 401ks and three different IRAs? Where am I going to get money from at any given point? Misunderstanding is huge. There's actually been some research that indicates most people, they like a monthly paycheck, but they don't like installments. They like guaranteed income, but they don't like annuities. So that's just breaking the tip of the iceberg on the lack of understanding. The way a lot of administrative platforms are set up today is, I go to the distribution screen and it just says, okay, well, here's your three options. I click installments and it says, well, you type in how many payments do you want? How much is the payment? If I'm a participant, that's a lot for me to figure out. It's a big decision. So, ease of use and making that flexible, I think, is really critical in order for people to really be able to get income from plans. And I think that really plays into why a lot of people say, "Psh, take a distribution, roll it to an IRA, and then I got to hire an advisor to help me figure this out."
Yeah, absolutely. What about on the plan sponsor side?
Mhm. Yeah, definitely some challenges as well. Those administrative systems, as much as we say, let's make it, flexible for employees, sometimes flexibility for employees means challenges on the administrative side, making sure it's compliant, making sure that it's being administered as is designed. Service provider capabilities are huge here. For better or for worse, pretty much everyone's locked into what their record keeper is offering. So, understanding what those offerings are and how those are positioned to employees. Product availability, we've got a lot of clients that have said, I'm really interested in this, but there's just nothing out there that really meets my needs. And then portability, from a product perspective, as we talk about, what's out there in the marketplace, a lot of these products are very tied into specific record keeping platforms. And that can be, very challenging for sponsors. Thinking about those legal and regulatory impacts, the Secure Act tried to move the needle in, I think, solving for a concern of sponsors with guaranteed income and creating a safe harbor approach to selecting an in plan annuity provider. At the end of the day, I'm not sure that's the biggest concern for a lot of sponsors. I don't think, folks are saying, I'm concerned we're going to pick an insurance company, the insurance company is going to go under, and then I'm going to be liable for that. There's just a lot more nuance to, the perception from employees and just the broader, am I going to get sued for general imprudence, above and beyond, might this insurance company default?
Right. And right now, there's no requirement to offer these, correct? This is
Nope.
more,
No requirements. And that's our, I think when we have conversations with sponsors, there's a couple of really important places we always want to start with that conversation. The first is, what's your philosophy on in-plan income? It's great to talk about installment payments and benefits to participants, but the reality is, these are features that are going to be used almost exclusively by people who are no longer employed. And some companies say, yeah, as a benefit to my employees, I want to offer them resources to support them in the next phase of their life. We've had other clients, and I think sometimes people feel badly about this, and I don't think they should, that have said, look, this is a savings plan. We run this plan, we offer this benefit to support our employees in accumulating savings. But, once you've left the organization, we would rather you move on and, take your savings and benefit from that.
yeah, yeah. And it does potentially increase your fiduciary burden if you're offering multiple decumulation services that you're going to
Hmm.
have to then monitor on an ongoing basis.
Absolutely.
So,
If we start to talk about products, I think the other really important thing that sponsors should be asking themselves and making sure they're getting really good, clear information on is, what problem am I solving for here? Because as we talked about, decumulation is not one size fits all. That also means that the products cannot be one size fits all. And so we need to acknowledge, the options potentially are have multiple decumulation products, which need to be monitored, communicated, create confusion of people figuring out which one's for me, what are the trade offs, or say, well, maybe, we're going to offer one choice, but it's, really for a specific constituency, and maybe that doesn't fit you, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. Is to your earlier point, it's not it's not a one size fits all, and the products that are available are certainly fraught with their own differences. So let's walk through some of those products and what they look like.
Yeah, so we have a little spectrum here, looking at kind of range of products that have been designed, launched, in some various capacities. For better or for worse, most plans check the very first box on the left-hand side in an income-oriented fund. Target date fund series include an income fund that is a balanced portfolio intended to be appropriate for people in retirement. And from an investment perspective, someone, separately can sign up for self-managed withdrawals, and bam, I've created retirement income from my plan. Some challenges there of connecting the investment experience to the distribution experience. We talked about kind of the burden of people on self-managed withdrawals, but that's kind of where we start. And the products build in complexity, cost, flexibility, from there. Some of the other products I'd highlight, on this spectrum in particular, managed payout funds are, we think, a really interesting option. That starts to move you into a realm of this spectrum of combining the investment experience with the distribution experience, where you've got those two things, in one place. In lieu of someone signing up for self-managed withdrawals, they sign up for managed payouts. They click a button, they don't have to decide what their income is. Now, of course, there's a trade-off. You have to be willing to have some flexibility in how much income you give over the control for that income. But that definitely creates an easy button for participants. These things can be run in a pretty cost-effective manner and can be pretty flexible for employees, but it's not going to meet everybody's needs. Um, Interesting as well, as we move towards, the right hand side of the spectrum, guaranteed products that have some kind of annuity component to it, whether it's fixed or variable type annuity. Certainly annuities bring that additional layer of cost. Generally, once a participant annuitizes, they're going to lose some flexibility, they're going to lose some liquidity. Whole different ballpark as far as administration goes. These products require a lot more administrative integration between an insurance company, an investment manager, a record keeper, but offer something a little bit different for participants.
And those tend to get into the realm of offering or limiting portability issues. And
Mhm.
we have plans that have some of these programs, and they are definitely
Yeah.
challenging from an administration standpoint.
For sure. And an understanding perspective, thinking about how do participants understand, what they're getting here. And that's maybe a good segue to talk a little bit about, what is this BlackRock product? Because I think sometimes, we show spectrums like this, and it makes it seem like, oh wow, there's all kinds of stuff out there. You know, Most of these products are not widely offered. They may be offered on single platforms. They may not even have a lot of plans in them. And a lot of them are conceptual, and that would include the BlackRock product at this point. So, what BlackRock is doing is embedding a fixed annuity within target date funds, specifically within custom target date funds. This is not a publicly available product. The design of the product is such that starting at age 55, the target date fund is going to allocate a portion of its portfolio to an annuity contract. In a lot of ways, that's probably, from an investment portfolio perspective, looks and feels kind of like stable value. But essentially, starting at 55, participants buying into a guarantee with a portion of the assets. And then starting at 59 and a half or later, the participant can choose to have a portion of their target date fund balance annuitized. So, a couple of important caveats: there is no option to annuitize the full balance. When the participant elects the annuity, essentially part of their target date fund is liquidated and the annuity is purchased outside the plan. So, the income is actually coming from a third party. interesting administrative setup. BlackRock is actually going to manage an administrative platform where participants would go to get education on this product, where they would actually go to elect their annuity when they want to annuitize. So that means it needs integration with the core record keeping system, right? BlackRock's got to get data from the record keeper. They've got to give data back to the record keeper. That's interesting in our cybersecurity type environment. And again, I think we come back to, what problem is this solving for?
Right.
Everyone in the target date fund is buying into that guaranteed income, and I don't think it's reasonable to expect that everyone in the target date fund wants that guaranteed income.
Exactly, yeah. And what compare and contrast that to just the participant saying, okay, I'm going to take my balance and go out and purchase an annuity for myself with some or all of my balance.
Yeah, so, this is a little bit more of an easy button. BlackRock's picking the insurer. They are acting as the fiduciary for that. So the participant doesn't have to get the pricing, the participant doesn't have to find the insurer, but there's more limited options. They're not going to have a full realm of choices through the BlackRock product. It's kind of like, here's the annuity, do you want it or not? It is a liquid product, so pre-annuitization, the participant could take their entire balance out of the product if they want. Post-annuitization, the remaining balance is liquid at any time. But that does mean someone's potentially paying into a guarantee that they're not using. I think BlackRock's argument is they're keeping the fees pretty reasonable here. I think they're estimating 16 basis points for the funds and the annuities, but still, paying for
Right.
something that you're not using.
You're not using, right? And how would you think about the evaluation of the investment performance of that product, during and post annuitization, and benchmarking that would be a
Well, it doesn't
challenge, I think.
exist yet, so we don't know how it performs, right?
Right.
That's a great question. I think we would start from a place of saying it's got to meet our investment expectations. It's got to compare favorably to broad benchmarks and peer groups. Doesn't have to be the best performer, as we talked about earlier, but
Right.
it does have to be competitive.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
Mhm.
I think they have a few plans that are slated to adopt it.
Yeah, they have, 5 sponsors that have committed. As we understand, you're in a process to implement, but again, hasn't gone live yet. It's going to be a while before they're live, and they've got a track record on even being able to look at how many people are using this.
Yeah, great. Well, definitely more to come there.
Mhm.
Anything else for this month's update you want to share?
I think I would just close as we talk about retirement income with noting I think we're in the second inning, maybe, of product development. I think I used to say third inning, but maybe I've taken a step back here. We talked about some considerations for plan sponsors. The what do I have to offer? What do I want to offer? And then considerations for evaluating products, really understanding, what need might this product fill? Who might be interested in getting income from the plan? How big is that population? How do we reach that population? And last but absolutely not least is always applying the fiduciary standards when selecting those products. Is this prudent? Are the fees reasonable? Am I doing this in participant best interest?
That's great. Well, thanks for this month's update. And if any of you viewers have questions about any of these topics we covered, please let us know. We're happy to discuss them with you. And we'll look forward to next month's update. Thanks, Alison.
Awesome. Thanks, Will.